Look at his face. And it's like, why can't we do that? Why is it so hard for us to see ourselves in that light? And would you stop? His voice was a river and I was stone, and every syllable reshaped me. I made a very different decision in that circumstance. It's very, very specific, like probably has not happened to anyone that's gonna watch this video. Oh my God, you guys, the twist. Universes split, and in one of them he died, and in one of them he lived. Hello, my bookish friends, welcome or welcome back. I am Elizabeth, this is Reading Riley, and today we're starting a new vlog. It's going to be books similar to sliding doors. Okay, hear me out. So, have you heard of this movie? It's from the 90s. Apparently it's a book as well, but it's only, I don't know if it was a book written about, like based on the movie. I don't know, it's weird and I can't find it. But this whole concept of sliding doors basically is what would happen if your life split between two choices. It's almost in the like sci-fi realm, but not. In the movie with Gweneth Paltrow, if you haven't seen it, watch it. It's great. It's a good movie. She is slightly distracted and she misses the subway. She's having a shit day. She gets fired from her job, so she goes home early. Something happens that distracts her and she misses the subway. We follow her from her life from that point forward when she misses the subway. But then there's also like an alternate universe where she did not miss that subway. And she goes home and finds her husband in bed with another woman. So this whole movie, we're following both sides of the story and how her life changes based on that one singular event in her life. There's also a musical that I'm obsessed with called If Then, starring Idina Menzel and Anthony Rapp. I never saw it performed, but I'm familiar with the music, and it's basically the same idea. We follow Liz and Beth, which is another reason I like it, because she has my name. One event, she misses a phone call and how her life changes based on those circumstances. So I'm like, okay, I want to find some books that are similar to this, right? I did some researching and I found a few books. The first book that I will be reading for this vlog that I have already started is called What Might Have Been by Holly Miller. I'm also going to be reading one that I've been really looking forward to for a long time, Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. At least these two both seem to be romances, which is not the goal of this. So that could be a whole thing because I'm not huge into romance. I just really love this concept. Oh my God, Denver. Can you just be the tiniest bit chill, please? And then I have a few options for the last one. There's one called Pivot Point that I'm interested in. There's one that's called The Pause. The Pause seems more about life, less about romance, but both of these are YA, so I'm kind of iffy about that. There's another one by Lionel Shriver who I really liked when I read We Need to Talk About Kevin, but this one seems really long and I'm a little bit iffy about that one too. And there's a couple other ones that I might be interested in, so I'm going to leave that one up to fate. Basically, I'm going to decide later. I'm not deciding yet. And I haven't decided yet how I'm going to rate these, what my ranking scale is going to be, but I'll let you know by the time I finish this first book. But let me tell you about this first book that I've started so far. First of all, I'm listening to this one. There's a British narrator, which I love. We're following Lucy, who's always wanted to be a writer. She ended up in a startup with one of her friends, and she gets to a point where she quits her job, and so she's sulking in a bar one day. This guy Caleb approaches her and they get to talking and they just like really get along really well. And she finds a fortune cookie, or she reads her fortune for that day, and it says, you're gonna bump into your soulmate today. Mind you, her parents met when they were like 18, fell in love, got pregnant with her sister, and are like the happiest couple ever, so in love, they're soulmates. So she very much believes in this idea of soulmates, and she has based her life on her parents ever since. Like, she wants that fairy tale romance. Then also, while she's at this bar, she looks out the window, and who does she see but
the one that got away?
Max. At this point, she has a decision to make since she quit her job. She could either stay in this small town, work at this little gift shop while she writes her novel and lives with her sister, or she can move to London, get this high-powered copywriting job, move in with her best friend, and potentially see more of Max. In the story, we're following both ways. What happened after that date? Did she stay in her small town? Did she move to London? In London, she's with Max. At home, she gets to know Caleb a little more. My food is ready, excuse me. I think I burnt the wings a little bit. So far, I'm about 50% into this book. I don't think this is gonna surprise me in any way. It's fine right now. Like, I'm not loving it. I'm not triggered by it, so that's good. But There was one thing that happened with Max that I completely saw coming from a mile away that does not bode well for him. But I also think she's going to figure out along the way that her parents' relationship is not what she thinks it is, and that there's no such thing as a fairy tale, but relationships take work and you just kind of have to be there with it. Denver, you cannot have my wings. So I think that's where this is going. In the storyline with Caleb, she has stayed home and she is writing her novel. And it's of course, it's a love story, it's a romance. She's really kind of delving into learning who she is, getting comfortable with herself, which I really like. She also has this other guy. There's this guy, there's this guy, Jake, I think. When she and Max were together in college, he broke up with her with no explanation, no nothing, and she dropped out of college and decided to go travel and write her novel. And when she did that, she went to, I think, Australia. She met this guy, Jake, and something happened with Jake. Because of that, she hasn't had a drink of alcohol in 10 years. That's really all we know. So there's gonna be something tied in with this Jake guy. He hurt her in some way. Other than that, this Caleb guy is a photographer, and he is still married, but he's separated from his wife, and apparently his wife is this like magazine lady. She's very elite and professional and lives in London and all of this. And would you stop? Lucy's worried that he's gonna want to get back with his ex. I don't like the idea of all this hanging in the balance of which man am I gonna be with. I wish it was, and it could be, more of like, where should my life go? That's kind of the direction I'm looking for. I don't mind a romance if it's a good romance, so we'll see. Anyway, I'm gonna eat my wings. I'll get back to you. So I finished What Might Have Been. I have to give it a little bit of credit because I like the direction that it ended up going in. It did not do that thing where it was like, I'm meant to be with this person. And at the beginning, we knew it looked bad for Max. It made me think that it was gonna say, this person's bad and this person's good, but that's not what it was saying. There are many different people that we can be happy with, and we make choices every day with the person that we are with to make it work, which I liked that. I liked that there was some amount of risk in there, that it wasn't just fate will lead me to where I'm supposed to go. There was a certain amount of encouragement of risk taking that I appreciated. So I think I've decided how I'm going to rate these books, and I'm going to first rate them by the sliding doors effect. I really am hoping that I'm going to get some kind of twist with this effect, that it's going to be used as a writing device to not just tell these two sides of the story, but to kind of fool the reader a little bit into thinking something's going to happen one way when it's going to happen the other. There's a thing that it does in Sliding Doors that I really like, and so I'm hoping that I can get that again. If the book had ended before the epilogue, I would have been pissed. But luckily, you know, she summed it up for me. Not that I need it wrapped in a bow and all pretty, but like the way that it ended before the epilogue was not okay. The Sliding Doors effect. I want them to pull one over on me. I want there to be some kind of twist in there. So that's going to be the first one. The second one is going to be characters. Obviously, this whole device is used to tell a story. So in that case, we're getting multiple facets of each character. So I want to get to know them on a deeper level because we have two sides of their life, basically. And then thirdly, I'm going to judge these based on what they're trying to say with this. I assume that most of these books are going to be saying the same thing. They're going to go in with this idea of fate and come out with this idea that it's up to us. And I think that's what draws me to this trope to begin with, is that I full-heartedly believe that what happens in our lives is up to us. We make our lives into what they are, but also that good things come to good people, which I do believe that. And that is an energy, exchanging of energy thing. So I guess that's kind of what I want to see. I don't want them to tell me like I was fated to be with this person, so I ended up with them and we're perfect together and we're happy. And we don't even have to try, because I feel like that is not helpful. And I feel like that kind of advice is actually harmful. So let's talk about these ratings with this book, What Might Have Been. First of all, the Sliding Doors effect. I think it was well executed. Nothing particularly shocked me, although there was a part at the end that I really did enjoy kind of how she took it, and that surprised me. Overall, like, I do think this book was kind of middle of the road. Like, I'm not going to be ranting and raving about it, but as far as the sliding doors effect goes, I think I am going to give it like a 3 out of 5. I think it's just kind of like what I was expecting it to do for the most part. Nothing shocking, nothing over the top. I did like that she kind of grew as a character, Lucy. You know, we're not living in a fairy tale, that this is reality, and she definitely had to go through some pains to get that, so I feel like that was believable. There were decisions that she made on both paths that I didn't necessarily agree with, but I think her character probably would have done. So I'm gonna give it a 4 for characters. What this book was trying to say, again, I feel like that message was what I was looking for. It was that whole, is fate real? Is fate not real? And then coming to that realization that we can be happy with many different people. And it's not necessarily about that person that makes you happy. Like, you have to find that within yourself. You have to take risks. You have to push yourself to be uncomfortable. Once you get comfortable, that's when you start dying. You have to continue to grow and to learn and to push yourself. I feel like that message came through decently in this story. I'm gonna give it a 4 again as well. So what's that? 4, 4, and 3 is 8, 9, 10, 11 out of 15. That's not bad. Yeah, I'm happy with that rating. I am going to start the Taylor Jenkins Reid book because I don't know, I still don't know what I'm picking for my last book, and I'm really excited for this one. I really wanted to read it first, but I was saving it. So gosh, I hope I like this one. If I come back and I hate it, like, I'm gonna be really disappointed, but you're here for it, so you're gonna find out with me. We're having loaded baked potatoes for dinner. It's like, I don't know, 9:30 at night. This is what's happening, and I'm so excited. Oh my god. Oh my god. Like, seriously? I've died. I've gone to heaven. This is life now. If this lady doesn't stop complaining about how old she is at 29, I'm gonna have a really hard time enjoying this book. Okay, I have to tell you guys about Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid before I finish it, because I'm pretty close to finishing it at this point. It's been a really quick, fast read. So we're following Hannah in this story, and she is kind of a nomad. Her parents and her sister moved to England, moved to London when she was like finishing up high school, and so she stayed with her friend Gabby's family. She's 29 now. She's lived in like 5 different cities. She really doesn't have any kind of stability in her life. She's moving back to LA from New York. LA is where she grew up. In LA, she has an ex-boyfriend there who, he's kind of the one that got away. They were together in high school, and then they broke up, and then it was just like never, the timing was never right. And his name's Ethan. And so when she gets back there, she's like, maybe I can start things up again with Ethan. She's living with Gabby and Gabby's husband. I forget his name. Mark. They decide to go out for the night, and she's meeting up with Ethan with a lot of their kind of like high school friends. Gabby has to leave early, and Hannah has to decide if she's gonna stay and hang out with Ethan that night, or if she's gonna go back early and, you know, get back together with him another time. And that is the point in the timeline that splits off. So you see what happened if she stayed with Ethan, what happened if she didn't stay with Ethan. She is spending a lot of time complaining about how old she is, which is kind of offensive, I'm not gonna lie, because she's 29 and I'm 35. Like, I've been there, and I get it. I remember that feeling. And she doesn't have the stuff in her life together, and I was actually kind of in the same place when I was that age. Like, you don't have your life things together, and all of your friends are getting married and having kids, and it's just, you know, it really puts a lot of pressure on you to feel like you need to get things in order. But there's no set plan for that, even though it may seem like that. Like, that's not, you don't have to live by those rules. That's just societal pressure. Oh, Jesus. Gabby is funny, her best friend, because Gabby is very politically correct. Like, I relate to Gabby a lot because she's always correcting people when they might say like sexist things or racial things. She'll always be like, actually, I am the best person you know, not the best woman you know. You know, like stuff like that. She's funny. I like her. So I guess this isn't really a spoiler, so I'm gonna go ahead and tell you. So when she leaves early that night and doesn't stay with Ethan, she takes a step outside and she gets hit by a car. So this whole second timeline is her dealing with her injuries. She's in the hospital, and in the hospital she meets a sexy nurse named Henry. Aw. While I didn't really want this to be like a romance thing, this clearly is a romance, but I will say that this is kind of not letting the romance take over this story, which I really like because it's got a little bit more nuance in there. It's not just, oh, I should be with this person or I should be with that person. It's more in terms of like life and what she needs to do to be happy, to feel secure and confident and live her life. So in the timeline where she didn't leave, she's with Ethan. In the timeline where she did leave, she's not with Henry, but she is they're kind of falling for each other. But what I really love about this whole aspect is kind of this found family thing with her and Gabby and Gabby's parents. Gabby's parents kind of treat her like she is family. I love that. They're just really awesome to her, and she's got a lot of these issues with her family in London, which I assume you would if your family moved to a different country without you when you were a teenager. Like, that's just weird. And when she's in the hospital, her parents come to visit her and her sister, and she's not comfortable with them. In an ideal situation, at least, when you're with family, you want to at least be able to like say what you think. She can't be honest with them. She doesn't want to hurt their feelings. She's like, there's love there. Like, they all have love there, but like she's kind of tiptoeing over certain issues and situations. So it really does add this sense of like, what is family? What is home? Because she's been traveling the world for so long. And we do have this conversation about fate, which I really like. There are a lot of conversations in here that I'm really, really liking. And I actually got really emotional last night. And I did film a clip for that. So I'm going to send you over to that. There's this really sweet relationship between Hannah and her best friend Gabby. And they're kind of both falling on hard times. And so when it happens to Hannah and Gabby's like there for her, and she's like, look, you're gonna get through this. You're gonna be totally fine. You're like competent, smart, beautiful, and you can do this. Like, you can get through this. And as I'm reading this, I'm kind of seeing myself in Hannah's perspective. And then something happens with Gabby, and Hannah has to be there to support her as well. And you know, it just got me thinking about how it's so much easier for us to look at our friends and, wow, I'm like getting emotional. It's so much easier for us to look at our friends and just have the utmost confidence in them that whatever situation they're in, no matter how hopeless it is, no matter how deeply they feel that there is no way out of this situation, we can look at our friends and say, like, you've got this, you're gonna get through this, and believe that with every fiber of our being. But when it comes to our own mistakes and our own situations, it's so much harder to look at ourselves. We give our friends so much more allowance and afford them so much more grace than we afford ourselves. It's really cool to think about how if we just gave ourselves that grace, you know, like, we would never be afraid. If we gave ourselves the grace that we give our friends and the people we care about, we would never have any reason to fear. We would be so confident we could do anything. And it's like, why can't we do that? Why is it so hard for us to see ourselves in that light? I don't know, just something to think about. I just wanted to like spit it out because that's how I was feeling in that moment. Okay, here's what I'm really liking. They are really using the sliding doors effect well. And this is what I was looking for with that whole sliding doors effect. There are certain things happening in both timelines that we're learning about as the reader from this other timeline, but that still affect her in this timeline, but she just doesn't know about it yet. So that is kind of what I was looking for with that. Things in the people's lives around her, things that cannot be changed based on making a choice. Like, it's already there, it's already happening, it's already in place, and it's being played out in both of these scenarios one way or the other. Really like that. I think as a writing technique, it's adding a lot of intrigue. It's kind of making this go by really fast. It's making the pace go by really quickly, which I enjoy. I haven't even wanted to stop to talk about this because I've just been wanting to listen to it. There's a lot of commentary about fate in here, which I really like. Surprisingly, our main character, Hannah, does not believe in fate. And she's saying that believing in fate is like living your life on cruise control, which I agree with. But then we also get to a point where she's kind of reflecting on these things that she's been through. She's reflecting on her life as a whole and the decisions she's made and the shitty choices that people around her have made. And she kind of is coming to, and I think this is where, I'm not finished with it yet, but I think this is where it's going to go, is that like, it doesn't matter if fate's real or if it's not. It doesn't matter if there is such thing as soulmates or not. It doesn't matter. What matters is that either way, we are still making choices every single day. We still have to deal with the consequences of those choices that we make, whether fate exists or not. And how you deal with those consequences and how you handle certain situations and what you learn from those situations is what's really important. And I really like that. So what's the real thing? It doesn't matter. Like, that's the thing. It doesn't matter. I really like that perspective. And I think it allows the conversation to be broader. The way you handle certain situations, the way you are under pressure, in love, or in really shitty situations. Is that the real you? Is that the most transparent you can be? Is how you react to certain situations that are either really great or really terrible? That's worth noting. That's worth considering. So anyway, I'm almost done with this now. As far as these two guys, I do have a preference toward Henry. Don't really care about Ethan, but I will say in that timeline with Ethan, there is a situation happening where it's like a huge life choice, and it's like a very specific life choice that has happened to me in my life, and I was almost triggered by it. I could still be. I don't know how it's gonna pan out. I made a very different decision in that circumstance. It's very, very specific, like probably has not happened to anyone that's gonna watch this video. And I'll tell you guys, I don't have a problem telling you guys about it, but I don't want to spoil you on the book. If you've read the book and you're curious, DM me and I'll let you know. Little interesting tidbit. I don't really care for Ethan though. Like, throughout the story, I'm not really connecting to him. I don't really, even though like, it's one of those situations where they're saying they had all this chemistry and it's just like there now, but like you don't get to see it happen. So it's like harder to get invested into a character that way. But I do like Henry. I'm seeing it happen and I'm seeing the kind of person he is, the quality of person he is, and I like him for her. It's seeming like either way she's gonna be happy, and I kind of hope that's where it's going. I have like an hour left on audio, so I'll check back in. I'll get dressed and things and try to behave like a human. Drop it. Good boy. This face. Okay. One more. Ready?
That's why I always do this on my phone with the... It gets even more ridiculous on my
He just wants the ball. He just wants the ball. It looks like a 90s Nickelodeon cartoon. Okay, hello. It's been a few days. I finished Maybe in Another Life. I finished it maybe a week ago, and I just haven't consulted with you guys yet. And I think my opinions have changed from what I would have told you if I had checked in then. So that's kind of interesting. I liked it. There's not much I didn't like about this book, but there's not much either that really fully blew me away. The way it ended, I felt good about. I didn't feel like it was trying to push me one way or the other. I didn't feel like it was saying like I was destined for this man and not for this man. There was kind of like I don't want to call it a twist because it wasn't really like a moment, but it was a twist of fate in a way that we might experience in real life. Something shocking and devastating for some of our characters, and so that had to be dealt with in a way that made sense. And so I liked that she put that in there because it wasn't this like fairy tale thing. It did have a point, it did have like a lesson learned. The tone of the book and the attitude of this book had this feeling of life happens, and we will deal with it the best way we know how. And it's not about whether fate is real. It's not about that. It's about the choices we make. Every choice we make, we still have to deal with the consequences of it, which I love that idea, because I'm sitting over here obsessing over,
is fate real or is fate not real? What is happening?
And what does that mean for my own life, and trying to like bring context into that. And it doesn't matter. None of that matters. We still have to deal with the consequences of our actions either way. And so I really like that kind of stance that this book took. Yeah, let's just get into the ratings. For the sliding doors effect, I definitely think we kicked it up a notch as far as using this writing device to tell the story a little bit differently. I really liked that. We knew things about certain characters from one timeline that the characters within the other timeline did not know. And so I thought that was really cool, because as the reader, you are waiting for it to be revealed to them. We're using these two separate timelines as a way to adjust our perspective in the reading process. So I thought that was really cool, because there are elements in our life that even if we make a different choice, a different decision here, those things still stay the same. The people around us, the effects of our environments, things like that, we don't have control over. And so it was a really good way to use that to kind of let us in on a little hint here and there. So the sliding doors effect, I think I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. And that's kind of where it's sitting for me. For the characters and the multi-dimensionality of them, I do feel like Hannah learned a lot of lessons along the way, and I do feel like she kind of got the overall picture. But I do feel like this book felt kind of YA in some ways to me. I don't really know how to explain it. I think just as far as it being like appropriate for me and someone my age, like maybe not as much. And I said YA, but I would say more like new adult. 29 is new adult. I don't know. Take it as you will. You know, take it with a grain of salt. The thing that I loved most about these characters was this kind of found family aspect, because Hannah was dealing with her parents having moved to England when she was in high school and kind of left her there. So she never felt like she had a home. She never felt like she had a place to go to when the shit hit the fan. She found that in Gabby and Gabby's family. It doesn't matter where you're from or how you grew up, there are people in your life, and there can be people in your life that are home. Like, you don't have to have a house that is home or a city that is home. There are people in your life that are home. So let's go ahead and give it a 4 out of 5 as well for characters. Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. And then as far as the lessons learned, what this book was using this trope to say, again, it comes back to that none of it matters. Like, you have to deal with your life in your own way, and the choices you make, you still have to deal with the consequences of it. I like that because it takes the pressure off. Why are we thinking about this? Why have we been drawn to this kind of story in the first place? Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's just okay to just live your life, and wherever it takes you, you're still going in the right path. Say fate is real and you're here. You're supposed to end up here. This is where you start, and this is where you're quote unquote supposed to end up, right? If you're too scared, some people, because they don't know if they're supposed to be going here or here or here, or back here, or all the way back there, they'll just stay put. It's like a flight or freeze, I suppose. But say you make a choice and it takes you over here. It's farther away from this point. But just the process of you going from here to here, you learn, okay, maybe that's not it. But when you were here, you never would have known that that's not it if you hadn't gone there. And so just the process of going there, of making a wrong decision, of making a mistake, is actually making you closer to here, even though technically it's farther away. Anyway, I like the overall voice. I like the overall message. I like Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing. While I do think this was better than the first book that we read, it's still not blowing my mind. So as far as lessons learned, I like what it was trying to say. I'm gonna give it 5 out of 5 for that one. So overall we have, what is that, 13? 13 out of 15. So now I can tell you that I have also started the next book, which I didn't tell you what it was yet. But I am so glad I picked this one because I'm liking it so much. It is called The Book of Two Ways by Jodi Picoult. I've never read a Jodi Picoult. Picoult? I don't know how you say her name. I've never read a book by her before. I just picked it up randomly because it seemed like it was going with the motif that we're having. I'm really liking it. This might be it, you guys. This might be the one. Let me see how far I am into it. I am 47% into it. And it's not a long book. It was like 16-hour audio. And I'm kind of taking my time with it. So far, this one is cerebral on a completely different level. And it's also getting into the more scientific aspects of this trope that I really wanted to delve into, although it is still a romance, or seems to be at least having romance in the forefront. Really loving the discussions that we're having here. We're talking a lot about quantum mechanics. We're following Dawn. She was in this Yale graduate program to be an Egyptologist, which is another really kind of interesting aspect of this book, where she is studying ancient Egypt. She was literally in Egypt digging up tombs and shit. And the Book of Two Ways kind of references that it was this like ancient Egyptian book that's kind of a precursor for the Book of the Dead that you would find on coffins, I guess, or like in tombs. That's basically a guidebook or like a roadmap to like how to get to heaven, quote unquote. So that's kind of what this is based on. And so while she was in grad school, she met Wyatt, and they had this kind of hate to love. He's British, and he's some kind of like British duke or like marquis or something. Do they learn about that stuff in England and Britain? I don't know what that stuff is. He's some kind of British royalty, and he's not following what his parents want him to do either. They are rivals in this grad program, and they fall in love, and the writing, you guys. Some of this writing, I wrote down a quote. Let me see. Some of this writing is just really speaking to me. He was reading poetry to her, to Dawn. And one of the lines Jodi Picoult writes from Dawn's perspective as she's listening to this poetry, and she says, "His voice was a river and I was stone, and every syllable reshaped me." I love that. I love that metaphor. Her mom got really sick, and so she had to go take care of her mom. And at the time, it was just her mom, and her sister. So when her mom died, she ended up becoming the guardian for her little sister. And so her life got turned upside down. She ended up going back home, and then she met Brian, who is her current day husband. He is a professor of quantum mechanics. So you have these two guys who are kind of on the very opposite spectrums of, like, one's very cerebral, he's very scientific, he's very logical, and this other guy is this like royal prince dude who is a romantic, but also into this like ancient Egyptian stuff. Dawn's really, really smart too. In her current day, she is a death doula.
What is a death doula, you ask?
It's like a birth doula, but the opposite. She guides people when they're very ill and helps them get through everything they need to get through, whatever they need as they're dying, to help their family, to help them feel more comfortable. They want to go to a museum, they want to smoke weed, she takes them, she does it with them. Any kind of thing that she can do to help guide them through the process of dying, she does. And all of that is kind of closely related to the Egyptian stuff too, because it's just a different way of looking at death. In the very beginning, she's on this flight, and the flight almost crashes, and they all almost die, and she has this moment where she's like, whoa, that was scary. How do I want to live my life? So in one timeline, she goes back home to her husband and her daughter. She has a 16-year-old daughter who also is dealing with a lot of body issues. And so there's a lot of talk about that too. She just like hates herself. She hates herself. She hates her body. And she's got some problems with her husband. Real life shit happening. Or she can go to Egypt, where Wyatt is, kind of surprise him, get back to work doing the thing that she's really passionate about, that she kind of feels like she missed out on. And so we're kind of following her in both circumstances. I'm really enjoying it. The whole talk about quantum mechanics is getting to me. I love the idea of quantum mechanics, even though like I'm not really smart enough to understand it. Like the idea of it is just so stunning to me. They talk about Schrodinger's cat, right? So Schrodinger's cat, you put a cat in a box with an opaque door, you can't see it. You put some kind of element in there that gives him exactly a 50% chance of living and a 50% chance of dying. Now, before you lift up the lid to see if the cat is alive or dead, he is both at the same time. Technically, with this theory of thought, right? He is both alive and both dead. The second you pull open that door, universes split, and in one of them he died, and in one of them he lived. But in that time, before you open it, both exist at the same time, but we can only see the one that we are a part of. We can't experience and we can't measure that reality that we are not a part of. So they go on to talk about this theory that is similar: quantum immortality and quantum suicide. Say I'm the one that is performing this test. If you put me in the box in place of the cat, and in which case I am not just the test subject, but I am the observer as well. See if I can explain this in a way that makes sense to even myself. Whatever situation happens, since I am the observer, it makes it impossible for me to observe it if I were to have died. So if I am observing it, I am therefore in that reality. So even though I would have had to have had a 50% chance of dying in that box, if I'm observing it and I'm alive to observe it, that means I survived it, but there's no way to repeat the test. So seemingly in this like thought theory, you are immortal, because you end up being the person in the reality where you survived if you're able to observe it. It's a theory that can't be proven, but in theory, it makes sense. I don't know if anything I just said makes sense, but I'll put a link down below for this if you're interested. I saw a video that was pretty intriguing. Anyway, I'll check back in with you guys when I finish this.
Here's what I do say. Thanks. The fact that I can still censor myself proves I'm not as drunk as I thought I was.
Oh my God, you guys, the twist. There is a twist in here. That is amazing. So good. This could be the perfect book. This could be the perfect book. Sorry, my husband's on the phone. Sounds like he's arguing. He could have been playing COD too. I don't know. I finished The Book of Two Ways and it's so good. The twist got me so good. Okay, let's talk about it. The writing is so beautiful. It's just beautiful. The writing, the thoughts, the ideas that are being said. Ugh. The concept of time and love and life and death so perfectly woven together in this story. There's a lot going on, granted. The themes in here are so thought-provoking. I love it so much. She really blends a lot of this conversations about death and Egyptology and quantum physics, and she blends them so perfectly in a way that's not overwhelming to your like brain, that you're like, what am I reading, a scholarly tome? Or it's not like that. It's like, it has so much feeling and so much heart, and like the way her writing is. I'm gonna have to read more from Jodi Picoult. If you guys have any other books of hers that you've read that you want to suggest to me, definitely let me know down in the comments, because I'm interested now. I am interested. Let's talk about Wynn. I didn't talk about Wynn before. So in her current timeline, where she's a death doula, she has a client who is dying. This woman, Wynn, I think it was short for Winifred, she is her exact same age. They're born on the same day, the same year. She's dying, and Wynn is an artist. Her life kind of parallels Dawn's in a lot of ways, because she has this passion of art that she kind of left behind and never felt like she fulfilled. And then she also has this like secret lover, not secret lover, but this man in her past that she feels like what could have been. And so she has all of these dilemmas that she's facing on her deathbed. And Dawn is not just helping her, but her husband as well, helping them go through this. That she goes through even like things to say to people when they're grieving, which I thought was really helpful, because I never know what to say in those situations. Death meditations, or like death yoga, things to think about at the end of your life, and like questions that you might have, which are kind of separate from this conversation that we're having, but at the same time, such valuable information. And then everything that's happening with her daughter, she's feeling disconnected from her daughter. She's trying to choose between these two lives, and she's like, but I have my family, like my daughter is so precious to me. But she then realizes that she needs to build that relationship, and how to build that relationship, and where do we go from here? A really good quote from the book is, love is messy. Sometimes you hurt the people you love, and sometimes you love the people who hurt you, which is so true and poetic. Okay, the ending is ambiguous. It's an ambiguous ending. It doesn't tell you how it pans out, which I kind of love that too, like, because you're right in the thick of it, right in the middle of it. As she's like confronting both of these worlds kind of collide, and so she has to face the consequences of that. And she says, getting what you want isn't instant gratification. It's a slow tearing apart, a realignment of bones and sinew. There are aches involved, there's bruising. And then there's this whole discussion of fate and all of that. Do we make decisions, or do our decisions make us? And this notion that perhaps we are not the decisions we made, but the like core of ourselves is based on what we tell ourselves about those decisions that we made. How did we justify that to ourselves? And that reasoning that we tell ourselves, that's what makes us truly who we are, not the decisions we make, not where we end up, not anything that has to do with an outcome or where we are, but why. Her husband had a really cool quote when they're in the thick of it and he's like, are we going to stay together? Are we not going to stay together? This idea of fate, he says, if fate is the notion that you're destined for a given outcome based on who you are and what you were meant to do, then a quantum physicist has to say that's bullshit by definition, because a quantum physicist knows that there are a timeline for every single option that there could have been. And then he says, on the other hand, if fate means the lack of free will, you have no control over which timeline you end up in, then you're just a pawn experiencing whatever the multiverse throws at you, and nothing you do changes that. So you kind of lose in both scenarios. You know what I mean? Let's rate this book. I feel like this is going to be the longest video I've ever had. The Sliding Doors Effect, loved it. This one definitely shocked me the most. That twist got me so good. And after it was revealed, I was like, I should have seen this coming. So maybe that's just a me thing. Maybe it went over my head because I was distracted by the Egyptology and the quantum physics. It felt like that should have been obvious, but it got me really good. It got me really good, and it complicated this entire thing and threw everything like up in the air, just poof. And that was definitely something that they used the sliding doors trope in order to make this twist happen. Definitely the best use of this. So far, I have to give it 5 out of 5 for the sliding doors. Like, not only did it use that as a writing device, but it explored so many ideas through this, which I love so much. Characters, I think I have to make a video of books with redheaded main characters, because Dawn is another redhead. She's Irish, and her mother was Irish Catholic and was very superstitious. So there's like a whole superstition element within this too. It's so well-rounded. It's so fleshed out. And I felt like these characters were real. Like, I didn't feel like I was being told a story. I felt like these were real characters living their life, making real decisions, facing real consequences. What do I have a lisp all of a sudden? What is happening to me? And so I'm giving it 5 out of 5 as well. And then for the kind of lessons learned, what is this book trying to say? Just the fact that it has an ambiguous ending. What the balls on Jodi Picoult? The balls, because it drives home the point. It ends like mid-sentence. I just think everything in this, it's 5 out of 5. Let's be real. It's 5 out of 5. This is a 5-star book. I loved this. I'm so glad I saved this one for last, and that I just like happened to pick this one as opposed to any other book that I was considering. It's 15 out of 15 total. It could possibly be the perfect book. Like, I loved it so much. It made me think. It made me feel. The writing was gorgeous. Just like beautiful, not purple, but the most thoughtful writing that just really digs into you and makes you feel, as opposed to just reading it, you're experiencing it. I just thought it was so good. So good. Reid Danver. You guys want to see his butt? Boop, corky butt. He's a model. Look at me, look at me. It actually kind of worked out perfectly, because we had an escalation of enjoyment throughout this video. What might have been, I didn't love, I didn't hate. It didn't do anything that blew me away, but it didn't do anything terrible either. So it's gonna be right in the middle. I'm gonna end up giving it 3 stars. Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one took it a little bit further, did a little bit more for me. I liked that even though this was a romance, there was a focus on family and home, finding yourself. I think it was actually really well done, and it started moving more into the direction that I was looking for. Honestly, that was like the height of what I was expecting. I was not expecting anything more than that. I am going to give this one 4 stars. And that brings us to The Book of Two Ways, which absolutely blew me away. I don't know if this book is going to be for everyone. It might be a little bit too cerebral. I enjoy that stuff, you know, and some people don't. So if you do kind of like really delving into theories and ideas in that way, then check this book out. My God, read it. It's so good. The twist blew me away. The discussions blew me away. I loved these kind of both sides of the spectrum of life and death, and like passion and death. I guess death could be the opposite of passions. in some ways. And there's just so much nuance in there. There's so much to discuss, so much to talk about. Not only is it emotional and beautiful in like an artistic way, but also just really well written plot and informative on so many other levels as well. So it just ran the whole gamut for me. Could not be happier with this book. 5 stars. This may end up on my best books of the year list, and just out of the blue, never would have expected to love this book as much as I did, and I'm really, really happy with that. Let me know if you've seen this movie. Let me know if you have any other book recommendations based on this trope or by Jodi Picoult. Let me know how to say her name. And that's gonna be it for me today, y'all. Don't forget that life is short. So Reid, Riley, cheers and goodbye.